the change it takes to make the world.
Hi there, I'm Carrie Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman, and today I have with me Rob Marquez. Hey Rob, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. And we're doing part 2 of a topic that I'm so interested in, that you have accumulated some really brilliant information on, which is about how to become free in an ancient system that is ready to shift in how it serves humanity, to give us more personal freedom, to give us more opportunity for creativity, for abundance, and how to be out of having to be that rat on the wheel that's just working forever and not getting to be really creative and live our dreams. And in part 1, we looked at some of the reasons for that. And today, as we go into part 2, you are going to share with us some of kind of the foundational things that have made you kind of structure your beliefs and the path that you're pursuing in this. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and let you take it away. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to share today. And I'm sure that our listening audience will be as well. I've had a lot of people write me and say they're so excited that we're doing this. So
Great.
Share
Awesome.
with us your great ideas.
I sure will. And I just want to thank everyone that comes to this video. And thank you, of course, Carrie, for having me. And thank everyone for having an open mind and listening to where we're going. And we really hope that this information, brings you some peace as well as knowledge and tools that you can use.
And
so
just to recap really quickly before you jump in, Rob, is you lived quite a life as a carpenter with a very hardworking family. Your family lost their home, and it kind of plunged you into looking at the system and why it operates the way it does, and why even people who are working so hard would be suffering like that. And we know there's so many out there who are being challenged with debt, with taxes, with just being overburdened by the system. So exciting that you're going to teach us a very clear path that is step-by-step to freedom. And you're also developing your website, which will be open soon, and people will be able to come and join you and be kind of taken by the hand and shown step-by-step how to complete this process that you're going to be sharing with us.
Yes, absolutely.
And we'll have links under the video, reference links, right? And then pretty soon we'll have the link to your website.
Yeah, we'll have some reference links just to a few things that I'm talking about so people can kind of research themselves. And that's one thing I wanted to say too, is that, you really, really should not take what I say, for granted. You should look it up. You should research it. You should look for the answers in records and things like that. That's what I did. I was a history buff, so I searched for the answers. I heard what people were saying on the internet, and a lot of it at first I didn't want to listen to. And but then I started to do my own research, and that's when I became empowered, because I started to see that these things were in fact accurate, because they were in records of the government and history and the Library of Congress and all that stuff. So I encourage people to do your research.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So with that said, I also want to preface with, that America, North America, and the land of America is really a very important place in history and even today. And we're going to talk today about jurisdiction. And we're going to show that in my studies and what I reached, and what is the foundation for everything I've ever done, is understanding jurisdiction. And that is knowing that the United States is not the United States of America. And that's going to be
Rob, that's a big word, jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Can you break that down for us a little bit as to what that means?
Well, essentially, it's the authority to administrate and provide laws within a certain area, or it's the authority over a certain area or over a person, the word person in itself has boundaries, because the word person doesn't mean a living man. It means a corporation. A corporation could be a person. It means a lot of things, an individual, things like that. So a person is one who wears a mask, a persona. So when you see the word person in a law, they're not talking about a living man. Maybe they are, but they don't specify that. So what jurisdiction does that apply to? Who does it apply to? If it's a person and a person is a corporation, are we talking about a fiction? Who is this person? So it's very important to understand, being a living man in the law. And you'll hear on a lot of these sites and stuff about people that say, I'm a living man, I'm not a person. And that's what they mean. A person is a fiction, or one who wears a mask. A living man is a man under the Creator, under God. It's a man or a woman. Completely distinct. So when we get into jurisdiction, that is essentially saying, jurisdiction is saying who has authority over that, and why, and where does it come from? So when I started to understand that the United States is not the United States of America, they are two separate body politics, one being what they call a de jure. Okay, de jure, if you look that up in the law dictionary, you can Google it. It's DEJURE, 2 words, de jure. That means a claim or a right over something or on something. So the claim or right of the United States of America is not the claim or right of the United States. I know that's getting a little confusing, but I want to break it down even really more simple here. The United States is a corporate body and is completely different from the states united together, which was the original unit of America on the land of America. Okay. They did this through a series of acts and events where they separated and made the United States a corporate body that is a democracy. See, so the United States as states together were supposed to be a republic. And a republic means it's ruled by law. So it's ruled by constitution. The law is written. Anyone who agrees to being a party to that is now in the jurisdiction of that particular body politic. Okay.
And how do we agree? How do we agree to be party to that?
Just like you just said, you just have to agree to it. You have to consent to it and be a quote unquote citizen. It's by consent only. So if you don't consent, it has no authority over you. Period. Now, in the United States, in a democracy, democracy means 51% rules and the 49% you're out of luck because the 51% voted against you. So a democracy is mob rule. Republic, that's why the country was started out as a republic, right? And to the republic for which it stands. It never said into the democracy for which it stands. Democracy is not what we want. Democracy is how the United States functions, which is fine for its jurisdiction. But it's not how the United States of America function. But see, they overlaid the entire country with a different jurisdiction. We'll get into more of that.
So my understanding is we've gotten a little bit off track. Like what we think the United States is not really what it is, right? That's kind of the point that you're making.
Absolutely.
And it's I think it's a big awareness for people to get. I think it's like you're kind of almost in shock when you first get that. Like, really?
Yes, exactly. Because I know I was.
Yeah. What happened when you first figured this out?
Well, at first, again, I was like, well, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
What do you mean I signed up for this? Where did I sign up? How did I sign up? And what do I do to sever that relationship, which has been the journey for me and a lot of people? How do I sever that relationship between me and the United States? And I've successfully done that, and you can do it too.
I can just see a lot of people I know thinking, well, wow, I don't know if I'd want to sever the relationship with the United States. But again, what you're demonstrating to us, what you're explaining to us is that what we think the United States is not exactly what it is.
Right. And
It's
if you,
basically a corporate structure, right?
it's a corporate structure, it's a democracy, it's one in which one has no rights. Okay, because one signs up to volunteer to be under that jurisdiction, you have no rights. You've traded all of your rights for privileges. So you don't have, which is why the Constitution doesn't apply. And if you bring up the Constitution at a court hearing, if you go for a traffic ticket or something like that, the judge will tell you, I'll throw you in contempt, you bring that up again.
Because you've already agreed to not be participating in the Constitution.
Absolutely. It
You've
doesn't
already agreed to be a participant in this other system.
Yes, it doesn't apply to you. And it gets even deeper, and we'll get into that in later videos, you know, because then they actually turn you into an enemy at some point, and we can talk about how they do that. But this fundamental principle is how they can control it all, because you agreed to being a U.S. citizen. And just, I want to get back to your question of, well, you know, I could see some people may assume, or some people may not want to sever the relationship because they don't understand.
Right.
But keep in mind, these are our same friends and brothers and sisters that are saying, stop the chemtrails, you know, stop beating people in the streets, stop the drugs, stop this. Well, no, not if you're a U.S. citizen. They've got every right to do all of that. Every right to do it, because you're a U.S. citizen. You volunteered for it. They're allowed to do any of that.
Could you summarize what you just told us? Like this whole reason that the United States is not really what we think it is?
Well, I'll give you one really quick way to just verify that first.
Great, I love it. Because I think what happens is I think our brains just start to scramble. You know, I've been exposed to this stuff quite a bit over the years, but I know when you start talking, I start realizing it at another level than I've really had it before. And so, but it does kind of scramble the brain. You kind of go, whoa, everything that I've thought was true may not be true. So how do I reorient myself to this reality? So go ahead, give the example. I'd love that.
Just one piece of evidence, okay? 28 United States Code, Title 28 in the United States Code is the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. What the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure is the rules of court for the federal government, okay? Now, here's where I'm gonna tie it in. If you go in Google and you type 28 USC, which stands for United States Code, 1746, look that up. It'll probably bring up Cornell Law. That's the site I usually use. Obviously a very trusted site, Cornell Law School. And under 28 USC 1746 number 1, okay, I'll read it to you. It's very simple. What this rule is stating is that whenever there is an oath made or an affirmation in support of evidence to establish evidence, there's 2 ways you can write that. Now let's read the first one. The first one says, if executed without the United States. Now remember that, if executed without the United States. It goes on to say, here's the oath at the bottom of the paper that you put before a notary notarizes this. I declare, under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the United States of America, that the foregoing is true and correct. Now let's back up, because a minute ago it said if executed without the United States, but yet within the oath it says under the laws of the United States of America. Well, in all reality and common sense, how can you be under the laws of the United States of America without the United States if they were in fact the same exact thing and the same place and the same body politic? It's impossible. Common sense tells you 2 things that are the same cannot be different, and you can't be under one without the other. Well, this law clearly says, if executed without the United States, that I swear under the United States, under the laws of the United States of America. Now, number 2 says, if executed within the United States, okay, this is 1746 too. I declare under penalty of perjury the foregoing is true and correct. But it doesn't say anything about the laws of the United States of America. So right here, you're looking at one of their rules of court, a federal rule that clearly shows the United States is not the United States of America. The laws of the United States of America can be executed without the United States. pretty cut and dry. Pretty cut and dry. Okay. So if you look that up, you will see that is, I've always used that as proof, and believe it makes jaws drop, because they're like,
what happens when a young person goes to law school and they start learning all this stuff? I mean, are they learning? I know you have a puppy behind you, so when you keep turning around, I'll just let people know that's why you keep whipping your head around.
Yeah.
A rambunctious puppy. But so
he totally just tore up my my guitar book that I had. And,
oh no! I need to introduce you to my dog trainer friend. So, what does somebody think when they start going to law school and they start learning these things? Do they realize they're learning admiralty law and not constitutional law, or how?
No, constitutional law in law school is an elective. It's not, they don't teach it.
You are kidding.
No, unless you specifically sign up for it, it's not taught.
So what do people think that they're learning? What law do they think they're learning?
They think they're learning, quote unquote, the law. That's all they call it, the law.
The law of the court, or the law of the system.
At law, right? So in the Constitution, it says you can have suits in equity or at law. Well, if you're at law, are you in it?
What does that mean, at law?
Exactly. That means I'm at the door, but I'm not in it.
Wow.
I'm not in the room, I'm at the room. I'm not in the river, I'm at the river.
How did somebody ever set up something so complex to kind of confound?
Because remember media of the time, you know, there was no internet. It was people who could only afford books, you know. And the government's thing is plausible deniability. Hey, we put it all out there. It's not our fault you didn't read it.
And people who knew how to read had to read it. I mean, not everybody knew how to read back then. We're talking the 1700s, right?
Yeah, 16, 17, 18, 1900s.
And this came from Britain, or?
Well, the common law came over.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to address the very, just as important, if not more important as jurisdiction, is understanding the law language. You must, it is imperative, in my opinion, for every man, woman, and child to have a law dictionary and to study it and read the definitions, because they're not the same as regular English. You have English in the country, you have slang, law, and standard English.
Is there, could you give us a example?
Well, I'm trying to think of a word that would, there's so many, it's like, I almost don't even know the regular meanings anymore.
Right.
But, you know, again, just take person, you know, look at person. That's totally not, you know, doesn't mean a man. It may say a human being, but even a human, if you look at the etymology, what is human? It's color of man. It's not really man.
Wow. What is, so what does person mean in the law language?
It means an individual, which is also look at the definitions. So go to person and look at everything it's labeled as, and then look at those definitions. And none of them say man, living man or woman. So it's an individual, it's a corporation, an association, an LLC, you know, there's all these different things. They're all legal fictions.
Wow.
But if you read the law that we think is the law, statutes and codes, every one talks about a person. It never says a man, because it can't. They can't interact with a man. They can only interact with legal fiction. And that's where jurisdiction comes in. We can't.
And I mean, I know we're not kind of really getting into this today, but our legal fiction starts when we get a birth certificate, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And our parents unwittingly are basically giving us over to this system of law that is like layered on top of our natural rights, so to speak.
And to really break that down, it's not even that they're giving you over. It's that what they do is we begin to grow up answering to that name. So we think that we are it, but we're not it. It's a corporation. It's a person, but it's not. So when you start to learn how to separate that and be able to apply it, now you're in law. You're not at law.
Okay.
So when I would go into a court or something like that, and they would say, are you practicing law without a license? No, I'm applying it. I'm not practicing anything. I'm not going to sit here and practice all day. I don't have time for that. I need to apply it, And it like that, but it was true.
And that was according to their language you were stating.
Yeah, it's pretty plain and simple. And then they would also say, do you have a license to practice law? No, neither does an attorney. They don't have licenses to practice law. And as a matter of fact, Judge, if he or she does, I suggest you arrest them. It's against the law.
So what do they have a license for?
They have a bar card, which is a membership dues card. They have a membership to a private association called a bar association. They call that a license, but I would suggest anyone on this call or that sees this video to call the local bar association and say, hey, I'm a law student. I just want to know, when does the state of Florida, Michigan, wherever you live, administer the license to practice law? We don't do that. They can't tell you that they administer, that the state, you have to say, does the state administer a license to practice law? No. Schwer versus Board of Examiners.
Oh.
State cannot license the practice of law. So again, we have legal language that we don't know, so it's easy to blur the lines and make us believe that this is a license to practice law. It's a license to practice whatever the bar association has developed. And who writes all these laws? The bar association.
Okay. So go ahead and keep taking us down the path here that you kind of structure your thinking around, because I've kind of asked you a few questions that have been going out in a little circle, but
yeah, I wanted to get back to jurisdiction.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Very, very important that you are not a U.S. citizen. And if you continue to be a U.S. citizen and you choose to do that, that is asking for all of the pain and suffering that you're getting, and you're getting it legally. So you can't complain. When you, and people say, well, how did I sign up for this? How do I not sign? Well, I don't put you in for anything anymore. I'm a non-resident alien under the IRC, which is the Internal Revenue Code. I'm a non-resident alien.
You and I had this conversation the first day we talked, which was the first thing that pops up for me is I still want to be able to travel internationally. And what about my passport? And you said there's a way to apply for a passport as a non-resident alien.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to check citizen and put your social security number. It's illegal for anyone to make you give them your social security without them first providing all the reasons why they're going to use it and all the statutes and codes that give them the authority to require it from you. So you don't have to give your social security to anyone, not even the state, especially the state, without them providing all of the statutes and codes and laws and reasons what they're going to use it for. They'll never do that. So they can't force. So there are ways to fill out the passport. So
is there a place to look for the non-resident alien passport application?
No, it's the application. It's just how you fill it out
differently. Okay. And I would hope that this will be one of the things you walk us through at your upcoming website, which is going to have a member area that will teach us step by step how to do these things so that we can choose to operate in a way that really protects us from.
Absolutely. But here's where I'm headed. Where I'm headed is it's not even our job to do that. What we want to do is appoint one of them to do that for us. And people say, well, wait a minute, if you're not in the United States, how do you do that? Well, it's very easy. You take control of this corporate thing that you think it is you, this U.S. citizen, this birth certificate thing. And again, this is getting a little bit too deep. So I
know it's where we're headed though. And I love it. And it's like, it's really important. I think that people get these pieces along the way. You've kind of structured your thinking from. And
absolutely. You're going to claim that entity, that corporation made in your name, and you're going to sever the relationship between you and them, and then you're going to reissue a new relationship. And if it gets too far into it, but that's ultimately where you're going to go. So then they're responsible for doing that kind of paperwork for you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's where I'm right at the edge of that right now.
Nice.
And I know people that have gotten to that. Well, I shouldn't say I know them, but I know of people that have gotten to that. So I know it's there. It's just a matter of doing the proper steps.
And we're also looking at a movement of enough people doing this that we literally create a shift in the system, because it's a demonstration that there's enough of us that are awake, that are present and accounted for, that realize that the system isn't kind of always moving in our favor. And how do we circumvent that in order to participate honorably and still get better results for our lives?
Absolutely. And, for people in other countries, if you're in a common law country, it's all the same. If you're in a civil country, you're going to have to do your research to figure out how it applies there, because everywhere there is a birth certificate in every country is the same procedure.
Do you think there's do you know what some of the examples are of corporate or republic or civil? I mean, what country?
Everyone.
Okay. They all are corporate.
If you type your country in Dun and Bradstreet,
Mm-hmm.
it'll come up, and that's how you know it's corporate, because they're getting funding from a bank that is crediting them, which is ultimately like the Federal Reserve, same owners. So they're corporate. Now, countries that aren't probably won't come up on there, but there's only a few, and guess who we're with? Those countries that aren't.
Exactly.
War with the countries that aren't.
I mean, I don't even want to get into who started all this. So let's just keep on going with the path out, because we could get into some pretty deep.
Yeah. We need to get this jurisdiction thing established.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell us more.
It is your flagship, and that's what I was told 9 years ago when I started studying, and it has been my flagship. I am not a United States citizen. I am an American, and that is a completely different citizenship. Okay, American citizenship is first. United States citizenship is second. It's a second-class citizenship that you must volunteer for. How did they do this? Let's look at the 13th Amendment first off. 13th Amendment says there shall be no involuntary servitude. And why do we all feel like we are bound and enslaved if there's no servitude? Income tax is a servitude type of action, but they get away with it because you volunteered for it. Remember, the 13th Amendment says no involuntary servitude. It doesn't say anything about voluntary servitude, so they're good.
Right. I think I've had that realization in the last year. We went from obvious slavery, which was putting people in chains and whipping them and making them go out in the fields and work, to sort of a covert version of slavery, where we submit ourselves to the system, we say we're part of it, and then we're kind of indentured to pay taxes on the money we earn, to keep that's good, Rob.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's good. That's working well. It's a good view of you. But I mean, it's gone from this obvious externalized slavery to this kind of covert slavery system, where we think we're not slaves, but really we've sort of indentured ourselves to, I know the taxes are part of it, but then even the whole debt system is a whole nother piece. And let's not go down that road right now. I think those are little loops we can open up as we go, but
yeah. We need to establish the jurisdiction thing. So again, it is servitude. What they did was they took it from private slavery to public slavery. So there was private slaves, like you said, people getting whipped and stuff like that, and then they made everybody slaves.
Right.
But it's a series of events. It didn't happen overnight. Just because the 13th and 14th Amendment came in didn't mean that all of a sudden everybody's slaves. Now we move to the 14th Amendment, which says that you can be, let me think about how exactly, let me see if I can pull it up. And so
And if you can just look straight and center, you're looking off to your right, kind of. Just look straight and center, a little more to your.
That's because I turned my
I
camera.
know, because you turned it. Yep. But if you can just look straight and center, you'll be looking at us.
That's center.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Because anyway.
I know.
Okay. So the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States wherein they reside, and the state wherein they reside. Now let's look at that. All persons, right, born or naturalized in the United States. Now a secondary requirement, the word "and" denotes a secondary requirement, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, and again a secondary citizenship of the state wherein they reside. So you're first a state citizen, okay? So I was born in New Jersey, so I'm a New Jerseyan. And you know where you find that? I'll tell everybody where to find your state designation. It is in the, let me think how exactly it's laid out. It is in the Government Printing Office Style Manual. Google that. Government Printing Office Style Manual, section 5.3. Okay, and what that does is it lists nationalities. Now, one from a nation has a nationality. Well, underneath that list of nationalities, it says New Jerseyan, Californian, Alabaman, Floridian.
Wow. And you say it again, it's government
Printing Office
Printing
Style
Office.
Manual.
Style what? Map?
Style Manual.
Style Manual.
Section 5.23.
Okay. Wow.
And so let's go back to our 14th Amendment. Okay, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So what they're saying is, if you're born in the United States, or naturalized, you still have to be subject to the jurisdiction. Okay, that's a big deal. Because we're not, number one, we're not even born in the United States. We're born in the state wherein we, quote unquote, reside.
Wow.
So, now I'm going to take you to another piece of the Constitution, okay, which is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. It says that Congress has only the legislative ability, and this is paraphrasing, to legislate the exclusive legislation over Washington, D.C., essentially, the territories and the possessions of the United States. The United States is only the 10-mile square of Washington, D.C., its possessions and territories. That's the United States, not Alabama, Florida, Michigan. That's not the United States. The United States is Washington, D.C., period, and its possessions and territories. That's it. It's not the states.
Wow. So what does that mean, the United States?
That means that every law that's been legislated for the federal government, so the tax laws, any law, FBI, all that, they are all operating outside their jurisdiction when they come onto your property, when they come into the state, when they apply their laws to the state, it's all outside their jurisdiction. Every law, every single law they've written. And now it gets even better.
So when it says that is the United States, does that mean it's the United States Corporation?
Yeah.
Okay, United States Corporation.
The body. See, remember, the United States was formed to regulate commerce and other things across state lines for the United States of America. So it was a body formed to operate, to manage the states that were united together. But they were separate nations united together. So the United States was like a managing body. That's all it was.
That's why Texas and Alaska are always trying to leave the United States and become separate again. I mean, there's always these movements going on.
But see, they would be leaving the United States of America, the Union.
Right.
That's even more powerful, to be honest with you, because you're going back even further. But to be honest with you, once the South seceded from the Union in 1860, that was all over anyway. Because Congress adjourned sine die, which means without day. Okay, so if they adjourned without day, with no day to reconvene their meeting, there's no more government. They didn't schedule another day to have another meeting. So Lincoln came in with the barrel of a gun and he held it all together. And he forced that union to stay together. Well, that's called a dictator, period. So from that day forward, we haven't had a constitutional government. They brought in emergency war powers for him to do that.
So we have about 12 more minutes. So contemplate how you'd like us to continue in this circle. I know I keep asking you questions, so and I know you're trying to get a thought process out. So let me let you go ahead and continue direction.
Yeah. Basically, again, what I want to get across to people, and we can even do another segment on this very same topic, because it really is one of the most important topics.
Yes.
Okay, is that you have to start understanding and knowing. Okay, it's not about believing. It's about understanding and knowing and doing your research to see that the United States is not the United States of America. That's first. Just try to wrap your head around that. And when you start to accept it and wrap your head around it, we can move further to understanding, okay, how do I live outside of that mechanism then when it controls everything? Because that's where we're going. Okay, but first we have to understand that we are not United States citizens. We are Americans, just like Patrick Henry said, I am not a citizen. I'm an American.
I'd like to just say, too, that the path you're taking us down to is a very legal way of accomplishing what you're talking about. It's not like going outside the law. It's actually understanding the law to the point that we can use it in our own behalf instead of against us.
Absolutely. And no, you're not going to get it from an attorney. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to burst any bubbles. I don't think attorneys are bad people. But you're not going to get it from them because they work for the government. They work for England, okay? They are barred attorneys. Again, look at your definitions. What does the word attorn mean? The word attorn means to transfer your rights transfer the rights from the tenant to the landlord. So an attorney is one who attorns for you. It's one who transfers your rights to the landlord. That's what an attorney does. And the Bar Association is not a government agency. They are an outside private trust organization, an unincorporated association. They are merely debt collectors, okay? And God bless their hearts, because people want to say, yeah, but this case was won in that case. But I'm going to explain to you all and show you that these courts are not courts of justice. Never were they past 1933. And they no longer exist under Article 3, Section 2, which is where they're supposed to be, but they're not. They don't exist. And that's where, again, this is all of it. So this is all legal and lawful. It's just knowing it from a different angle. And trust me, I have had attorneys, I've had judges eat attorneys up in their face in the courtroom because the attorney tried to step in and trump what I was saying or doing, and the judge immediately reprimanded them. And the attorneys couldn't figure out, why is the judge yelling at me? You know, they had no idea. What is this guy doing? He's crazy, but this judge, for some reason, is on his side.
Wow. Because you basically almost understood the law better than they did.
Oh, I did. Some of the judges had to bring books out and study while I was standing there. They had to read and look through and check up and figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this guy? How am I going to get around him?
And Rob, I will say again, in all the times I've spoken with you, you really have a gift for this. You know, I mean, I think, and thank you for taking the time to kind of explain it and lay it out for us bit by bit, because it really does make the head swim, you know, to try and comprehend this. And you've spent years now studying, researching, learning, teaching yourself. And I think this is really important stuff.
It is, absolutely. And I really think, to wrap it up, like you said, is people really start wrapping your head around jurisdiction, because we are in a country that can do this. And Australia can, and other common law countries. Other countries may not be able to do it to the degree we can because their government does have the ultimate right to come in and basically destroy them.
So
Ours does if you're a U.S. citizen, but that's why we want to separate that. So we're not U.S. citizens, so they don't have that right anymore.
So any other laws you can think of are common law countries besides us and Australia? Anything off the top of your head?
Canada.
I mean, is that what the European Union is?
No, I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the EU at all. Just some function according to common law and some function.
What about like the South American countries? You think a lot of them are civil?
Civil. They're mostly civil. You can look up on the internet and there's charts that show you which countries are common law.
Okay. I think that'd be a really interesting thing to research. And I know I have a lot of friends in Australia who are really they're wanting to circumvent the old system, and they're like open to learning for sure.
But the point is, if we do this here, we can affect change in all the countries.
Nice.
That's why it's important, that the Americans come back and not the United States citizens who are over there destroying countries for money. That's not and I'd like to say to all those poor people that are being bombed, bless your hearts, it's not us. Forgive us, it's not us.
It's not the people of the United States of America, it is the United States corporation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think the best thing we can do with the rest of the time we have today is for you to kind of just go over this again. What is jurisdiction? What is the difference between the United States of America and the United States corporation? I think because they say, tell us again and tell us again. It's the only way we're going to get it. And I think if you'll just review everything you just told us, kind of just do a little review right now, I think that'd probably be the best thing you could possibly do in the next 5 or 6 minutes.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second because I really want to just give you the definition of jurisdiction.
Perfect.
Okay. So the definition as it reads, and this is just off the internet, and you can look up the legal definition, is the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. Okay. So you do have the official power to make legal decisions and judgments in this country because in the common law, this is what we're getting at. Jurisdiction is in the common law, the court is defined. Look this up on the internet, Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Actually, it's one of the links Carrie's going to put up. Within that definition, it says the international definition of a court. Now, remember, since the United States of America is not the United States, now we're international because we're going from one country to another. The definition is the person in suit of the sovereign. So that means if I'm wearing the suit of a king, and I don't call myself a sovereign citizen, I'll never do that. But if I'm wearing the suit of a king, it's my court. Okay, so jurisdiction, the official power to make legal decisions and judgments. Who gives that authority? Where does it come from? That's what we're getting into by dividing up and saying that the United States is not the United States of America. You can see that evidence in 28 U.S.C. 1746(1). That is where it shows you the difference that the United States of America, that the United States can be excluded from the laws of the United States of America. It's very simple. So we have to understand what jurisdiction are we in? And did we give consent to even be in that jurisdiction? Which jurisdiction did we give consent to? And that's what we're going to get into all of this stuff because it's really not hard. The hardest part is opening your mind to the fact that this is accurate and does exist. That's the hardest part. So if you can get this to open up, you're already on the road.
Rob, is it right for me to ask, do you have some insight into who started this and why?
Well, if you really trace the research, what you have to do is look at the congressmen involved in writing the laws and the senators and stuff involved in writing the laws, look at the lobbyists and things like that, and trace their actual corporate histories and family histories, and you find out that it kind of goes back usually to Jesuit influence. That's a whole other ball of wax.
That's a whole other ball of wax. I know I have a lot of that kind of history. sort of mapped out. I mean, I think some of the things Michael Tellinger writes about, enslaved species of the gods, and he really traces a lot of historical things and how they came down through humanity. So that is a pretty complex subject. And I think instead of us going down that road too much, what we're going to do is say, let's take it in the now and let's deal with what we have presented to us in the now and how this is affecting our lives, and how, because we're growing into kind of a more mature race of beings as humanity. And we have many people now who are awake on the planet that I call 21st century superhumans. We're able to enter into a new relationship to how this structure has been set up. And that's really exciting.
Yes.
And that's what you're introducing.
We are here to forgive and accept and love. So what happened in the past happened in the past. We now need to educate ourselves about what was done and how we can correct it. We're not worried about what's been done all back here.
Yes.
Forget it.
Yes.
It's over.
Yes.
We need to move forward. And that's where I hope to get people.
I love it. I mean, that is really, 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 really why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because that attitude is what makes this a healing process for humanity, instead of, you know, carrying us into carrying on old data that we're angry or we're resentful or, you know, we're victims. We just cancel all of that. And what we are is we are learning our creator role in this world, and how do we step into choices that bring us a more viable life.
Yes, absolutely. We are all one being. We all come from the same creator. This is all part of the same learning mechanism. So we've learned, you know, how did this happen? Yes, we could talk about that all day long, but we really want to know first how to move forward.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much for today. And I think we're going to have quite a number of videos in this series. We want to break it down into kind of little bits. And I want to encourage everyone who's listened to one and listened to two, stay with us, keep assimilating it bit by bit so that we can start shifting our neurobiology. We can start learning how these things can really affect our lives, change our lives, and really change the lives for many people on planet Earth.
Absolutely. And I just want to apologize, everybody, for my camera issues. I'll get that straightened out in the next video.
No worries. It's pretty minimal, not a big deal. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll be doing another one of these shortly. And I want to invite everyone to remember to breathe, smile, and offload any data that is not of love, and center yourself in the path of love on planet Earth, because we are giving birth to a new phase of human civilization. Join us on more 21st Century Superhuman shows. You can check out my website at 21stcenturysuperhuman.com. People can travel with me, get my book, 21st Century Superhuman Quantum Lifestyle. Rob has a website coming up that will have member content. We will also have Jedi training and other exciting things, health training at my website. We're here to seed the possibilities and to help all of us grow together into a new, better, more vibrant civilization that serves the well-being of everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie.
You are so welcome. Thanks, Rob. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.